Let's now speak to the government. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden. Very good morning to you, Minister. I'll just recap what the President tweeted 15, 20 minutes ago, that the ceasefire is now in effect. Please do not violate it. A great moment, I imagine, in your eyes, both in the short term after some overnight question marks over the ceasefire, but also in light of the last 10 days overall.
Well, I hope it's right. It's a fragile situation. 3 people were killed in Israel overnight. But if these hostilities have come to an end, I think people will breathe a sigh of relief. And as your reporter was just saying, the big question remaining will be, what is the state of Iran's nuclear programme after this, and how do we bring it conclusively to an end?
It's interesting to hear you say, if this is true, and I know it's an unfolding situation, but I think you'll excuse my question on this. It implies and reveals that we're sort of a bystander on all of this.
No, I'm just saying it's an uncertain situation. You know, during the night when there was a ceasefire had been announced, missiles were still firing. The Middle East is always a fragile situation. That's a statement of fact. So I hope this ceasefire holds, but I can't predict the future. And we are in a situation there where we've seen a lot of military action, particularly over the last 10 days.
Which we have been a bystander on in terms of attempts to influence, either withhold or encourage?
Well, we've not taken part in the military action in the last 10 days. We weren't asked to take part. It wasn't something we were involved in. What we want to see is Iran's nuclear programme brought decisively to an end. And all the way through this, including during the last 10 days, what we've said is that has to be, in the end, by an agreement. And we hope that's what now takes place.
Yesterday, your Defence Minister, Luke Pollard, couldn't answer the question of whether the government was disappointed that the US acted over the weekend or pleased. Are we able to answer that question now?
Well, I don't think we're disappointed. If this brings Iran's nuclear programme to an end, I think the world will be relieved about that. The US is a strong ally of the United Kingdom, and we're a strong ally of the United States. What we now want to see, if this ceasefire does hold, is Iran, having learned that it can't be allowed to proceed with this nuclear programme, agreeing to bring to an end, once and for all, their attempt to develop a nuclear weapon.
So I guess, I'll put it a different way. I mean, President Trump talks often about peace through strength. Is this an example of that in action? And I guess with that, do you commend the decisive action that President Trump took over the weekend? Well,
you do need strength, and that's why we are announcing a national security strategy today as a means of reaching the new NATO goal, which is likely to be agreed at the NATO summit that meets today, of increasing our defence and security spending further to a total of 5% over the next decade or so. You do need strength in this world. If you're going to have a peaceful world. That's something the UK has always believed in, and that's why we've always met our NATO commitments.
Well, I'm coming to the NATO agreement, the next question, but just to round off that final one, do you commend the decisive action that President Trump took over the weekend to get us to where we are?
Look, it's their decision. It's not a military action that we were involved in. What we now want to see is Iran agree to end its nuclear programme, and that's what I hope happens now.
I need to update the breaking news that Israel has just said that 9 people were killed this morning, not 3. I guess we're both reacting.
Well, that's what I mean about fragility.
Yeah.
You know, this is fragile, and I hope it really does come to an end now.
I guess, again, we're both reacting to this live. I mean, would you have to commend Israel if they show restraint in the next 24 hours and adhere to this ceasefire?
Well, I hope everyone adheres to it. The one country that doesn't come out of this as winners is Iran. But if Iran agrees to end its nuclear programme once and for all, I think many countries will be relieved about that, not least many other countries in the Middle East.
I mean, I know this isn't what you implied, but I just wanted to clarify. I mean, Israel's not been a winner in recent years either.
Well, look, I'm talking about the events of the last 10 days. I think they've been a huge setback for Iran, and that setback isn't the only one that Iran has had. It's been funding proxies in the region for years. They've also had a setback there. If you compare the strength and standing of Iran now compared to, say, a year ago, there's a big difference. But the process is not finished because we don't know for sure that they have given up on their attempts to get a nuclear weapon, and that's what the world wants to see now.
Let's talk about the announcement today. I mean, 5%, this is a sea change.
It's a big step up, and it's a big step up that's been coming for some time. We set ourselves on this path with the announcement to increase defence expenditure to 2.5% of GDP over the next couple of years. This is a longer-term target today. The 5% is made up of 3.5% in core defence spending, what we normally understand as spending on our armed forces and our Army, Navy, Air Force and so on, with another 1.5% on broader security and resilience spending, things like border security, cyber security and so on. It's an ambitious target for NATO, but we've always met our NATO commitments in the past, and we'll meet these ones too.
I'm sure you know my next question is, how are we going to pay for it? If we put to the side the kind of new parts of spending that didn't used to fall under this umbrella and just focus on core defence, 2.3 today, you've already outlined how you're going to get it to 2.5 by 2027. 3.5 is a long way ahead of that still. Is the Chancellor in the autumn statement going to outline how we get to that? And if she doesn't, what do you say, not so much to political critics or annoying journalists like me, but to President Putin, that this is a genuine pledge that will be met? Because until we know how it's going to be paid for, it doesn't really feel like it.
Well, if you look at what we did with the increase towards 2.5, it's actually 2.6, including intelligence spending. We set out how we would pay for that. And it's not easy to pay for these things. There's no shying away from that. And we did that when we made the announcement. And the spending review that was announced just a couple of weeks ago has been clear on how everything is going to be paid for. We'll take the same approach in future years, but there'll be a number of spending reviews between now and 2035. And as we increase defence expenditure, we'll always say how it's going to be paid for. There's also a review clause halfway through this increase where NATO members have agreed to look at this on the trajectory, on how all this is going in the year 2029. That's going to be an important point to check progress and see how we are doing. So this is a long-term, sustained increase in our commitment to invest in our own defence and security. And this issue about 3.5% and 1.5% is important because we can no longer think of security in the traditional way as just on the armed forces. This is about the strength of our society, about our cyber capabilities, about our energy security, some parts of our infrastructure. All of these contribute to us being a stronger country.
I'm sure you've seen some of the comments President Zelensky gave exclusively to Sky News' Mark Austin last night, but interesting timing on this. He said it's too slow. He said that by 2030, Putin's army would be back to full strength, and indeed even felt that in the next 3 or 4 years, Putin would test NATO's resolve by invading a NATO country. Is this too slow?
I don't think it's too slow. I think it's ambitious. I think it's a credible plan. And I think it's really important that the UK, as a leading NATO member, agrees to this commitment and that the other NATO members do so too. Look, if you look at the broader sweep of this, this call from President Trump for European countries to do more to secure their own defence, it's got sharper since he was elected, but it didn't just start with President Trump. This has been coming for some time. Parts of this programme NATO has been developing now for 2 or 3 years. And Mark Rutte, the Secretary General, has brought this together in a plan that's going to be put to before this conference over the next day or two.
Is President Zelensky being over the top to say that it's a threat that Putin could invade a NATO country in the next 3 or 4 years?
Well, look, I think the aggression shown by Russia and President Putin in invading Ukraine has been, or should be, a wake-up call for the whole of Europe. We see the fight that Ukraine is engaged in, which the UK strongly supported, as being not just about its freedom to decide its own future, but about European security as a whole. So if you're Ukrainian, if you're the president of Ukraine, it's not surprising that you're issuing warnings about Russia's aggressive intent.
You also said that some components made by British companies are reaching Russia to be used in weapons manufacturing. Do the sanctions need another closer look?
Well, we should always be reviewing these to make sure they are as effective as possible. Sometimes there are complicated supply chains. You don't quite know where a particular component will end up. But we want the sanctions to bite, and we'll always try and make sure that happens.
Just want to move on quickly on to welfare. Dame Meg Heller's amendment on the welfare bill, is it a sensible amendment?
I don't think so. Reforming welfare is really important. I don't think we should be relaxed about a situation where the number of people on disability benefits is projected to double in the course of a decade. That's not good for them. It's hugely costly for the country. And the package that we brought forward is a sensible package, which also combines significantly increased support for disabled people to get into work. So I've seen the amendment, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussions between MPs and the whips over the next week or so before the vote. But the package that the government's brought forward is a good package of welfare reform, and I hope that my parliamentary colleagues will support it. And
there's no plans to sort of meet her halfway to introduce some tweaks so as not to face this down in a vote? You'll face the vote if necessary.
Yeah, we'll face the vote, and we're always happy to talk to MPs, and if people have got concerns about the package, we will always talk to them, but we can't shy away from the need to reform the system, or else if we did, we'd be saying that we are content to see this grow both in numbers and costs year on year, even after these reforms. Mm-hmm. The number of people on disability benefits is still projected to increase. This will slow the rate of increase, but it will also critically get more support in place for disabled people who want to work.
Pat McFadden, always a pleasure. We appreciate the slightly extended time as well, given the breaking news. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.